Hey guys, check this out. Is this not the coolest thing you've ever seen? So, and wait a minute, it gets better. It's 2 blankets in one. Guys, this is my new favorite technique. Like, how stinking cool is this? I'm trying to make sure that I'm like in camera enough because this blanket is massive, okay? It's so big. It's so big. I worked on this. I think this is about 60 plus hours of work. I did not anticipate this taking as long as it did. This is called Interlocking Crochet. There's a few different names for it. I've seen people call it and confuse it with mosaic, but it's not mosaic. This is Interlocking Crochet. I've also seen it called double fillet, which is an accurate description, but you essentially are making like 2 different sets of stitches at the same time that are worked through each other. So you never mix. So in this one we have this cream color, and then you have the Mandela yarn. So 2 different yarns. So your yarns work through each other, but you never work the stitches together. So you only ever work the one color with itself and the other color with itself. So color A is only worked, the stitches are only worked in color A, and color B, the stitches are only worked in color B. And when you do that, you're basically creating 2 blankets. So it takes a long time. This is a time-consuming technique to do, especially on such a big project. But what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be making a teeny tiny little swatch so that this way you guys will not have any trouble making your own blanket. Gosh, isn't it amazing? I mean, just look at it. It's seriously, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I mean, I'm like speechless. Isn't it? Like, I mean, look at the size of this thing. Hold on, look, I could cover the whole, hold on. I can't even really get it all. Is it a little bit? Wait. It took so long, but it's so worth it. This is a great project that you could pick up and put down and work on over the course of a couple of months if you wanted to, or you could be a crazy person like me and work on it non-stop over the course of 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks, but seriously, it was 60 plus hours. I didn't sleep. It didn't sleep. But it's so good. Okay, so let's just get moving and hop on in and do the tutorial for this blanket. Hi friends, for today's tutorial you are going to need a 5mm crochet hook, some stitch markers, and 2 different yarns that contrast each other so that this way you can create this beautiful interlocking crochet stitch, and that you will be able to see the pattern very, very easily. Now, you could choose 2 similar colors, but I highly recommend to go with contrasting colors, but at least something that you can see the difference with. So if you wanted to do a monochromatic and do a dark blue and a light blue, you will still get this effect, but it's going to be way, way, way more noticeable if you are using 2 highly contrasting colors. All right, so let's get started. Today what we're going to do is we are going to just make a little swatch like this, and I'm going to go over what the repeats are for this pattern so that this way you're able to make my duality blanket, which uses interlocking crochet. Now, I wrote the duality blanket in 1 size. The reason for that was because I wanted to use up every last bit of my yarn skeins for the kit that I was designing for Lion Brand. However, I am going to explain to you here, and I have explained in the blog post for the free pattern, how it is that you can go about making any size blanket that you want and what the ratio is between the two different colors that you will be using. So to create this stitch, you are going to have to make 2 different starting chains. Now, those chains each have a different multiple. So for color A, which is the white or the cream in this pattern, it is a multiple of 4 plus 4. For color B, which is this really pretty kind of, I don't know what we call this, a mauve or a magenta color. It really depends on what you're working with in the mandala, but in this case, it's the magenta of another mandala that I have. This, for color B, is a multiple of 4 plus 2, but it has to be 2 less than your starting chain for color A. So basically what that means is that this starting chain is 16 plus 4, so a multiple of 4 plus 4, so a total of 20. And then this starting chain is 2 less than that, so it's a starting chain of 18. So let's go get started and make our filet mesh that we are going to do across the bottom for our foundation rows. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I have chained 20 stitches to make our little swatch. So in the pattern, you have to chain 304, which is a multiple of 4 plus 4. And if you are using this tutorial to make any other size, you have to figure out your sizing based off of a multiple of 4 plus 4 for your starting chain. For the purpose of this tutorial, we are starting with a foundation chain of 20. So in row A for the foundation, the instructions say to double crochet in the 6th chain from the hook. Now I like to use the back bumps so that this way the top of the chain stitches end up at the bottom of the row. It's just a much cleaner, neater edge. So I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I am going to double crochet in the back bump of the 6th chain. We will then chain 1, skip the next chain, and double crochet in the next chain, again using the back bump. Now you are going to repeat that, chain 1, skip 1 chain, double crochet in the next until you reach the end of this row. So I've placed the last double crochet in the back bump of the last stitch of my starting chain, and what I'm going to do now is take a stitch marker and I'm going to mark this stitch. So this is the foundation row using color A. Again, a multiple of 4 plus 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my color B, which in this case is my mandala. My color A is using Pound of Love with my cream color or my neutral, okay? And so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another chain. This time it is going to be 2 less than the chain that I just created, which means that I will be starting my foundation row with color B using 18 chains. Now again, just like in foundation row A, we are going to count to the 6th chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I like to use the back bump, and we are going to double crochet in that 6th chain. Chain 1, skip the next chain, and double crochet in the back bump of the next chain. Repeat that to the end of foundation row B and place your stitch marker. Okay, so we now have 2 sets of foundation stitches. We have foundation row A and foundation row B. So right now they are separate, but from this point forward, we are going to start working these 2 sets of foundation stitches together. So now what we need to do is we have to lay foundation row A on top of foundation row B. Now, you need to make sure that your working yarn is on the right side of your work for whichever way you work. So if you are a righty, it needs to be coming to the right. If you are a lefty, it needs to be coming to the left. I am a righty, so I have to flip this over, and I'm going to take my foundation row A, and I'm going to lay it on top of foundation row B, like this, okay? So you can see that foundation row B is slightly shorter because we are 2 stitches shorter on this foundation row B. And you also need to make sure that you are very mindful of your tension when creating this pattern, because Pound of Love is a CYC4 and Mandala is a CYC3. As long as you are mindful of your tension, that will not be an issue, especially once they start getting worked together, specifically because these stitches are going to get pulled and into the proper placement so that the gauge will match. Before each row section, it is going to note where you have to place color B. So before we work rows 1A and 1B, at the top of the instructions in the pattern, it tells you that you need to bring color B, the working yarn, which is this, okay, to the front. So I'm going to drop this to the front. And the reason is because we are going to need to be able to start this stitch here at the front of our work when creating row 1B. Row 1A, which we are going to start here, we are going to be working behind where we pulled row 1B, okay? So I'm just going to turn this so that this way I can make my chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is the first part of row 1A. You have to create a chain 4. Now, this is where things are a little bit tricky and possibly new to you if you have never done interlocking crochet. So what we have in interlocking crochet is we have a series of double crochet in back and double crochet in front. Now what that means is you need to work the stitches of the color that you are using either in the front of your work or the back of your work, kind of like a post stitch, but also very different. You never mix your 2 colors together. So I will never mix my color A into my color B. My stitches are always created in the current yarn that we are working with. In row 1A, the first step that we do is create a chain 4. Then we have to double crochet in back of the next double crochet. So what we have to do is come through this first window here on row 1B. We're going to come through that first window. Make sure you yarn over, come through that first window. Come through that first window to grab that first double crochet. Pull it to the back. Okay, so we're flipping 1B over 1A, and then we're going to complete our stitch. And then the repeat for this pattern, what we are going to do is we are going to chain 1, and we are going to double crochet in front. So coming to the next stitch of the foundation row, we are going to place a double crochet in front. So we're working in front of color B to pick up this next double crochet, create our double crochet, then chain 1 and come back here working through our next window. So since we work to the front in this one, we skip this window and come into this next window, and we are going to put our hook through to grab our double crochet, bring it to the back because we have to double crochet in back, and then once we get it to the back over here, that was when we will complete our stitch. And so we're going to repeat that all the way to the end, chain 1, skip the chain, right? We're only working in the double crochets, double crochet in front, chain 1, skip the chain, come into this next window on the back. See, we're skipping these windows, grab it, pull it through so that color B is over, complete our stitch, and then we are going to keep doing that until we get to the end where we have to end just a little bit differently. So double crochet in front, chain 1, double crochet in back, chain 1, and then we are going to double crochet in front. Okay, and so we started with a double crochet in back, but we end with a double crochet in front, and the reason for that is so that this way we have these 2 stitches that are at the front of our work, and then we have the base of 3 of our squares. Okay, now make sure to pick up your stitch marker and move it to the end of row 1A before starting row 1B. To start row 1B, what we are going to do is we're going to come over here. We're going to make sure we can pull our loop tall so we can get our hook in. We are going to start with a chain 4. Okay, and see how I'm working at the front? That's why it's important to make sure that you're paying attention to whether it is noted to work, whether it's noted to pull color B to the front or the back of your work at the beginning of each next section. So row 1B is a really easy row. So this entire row, we are working all double crochets in front. So we've created our chain 4 and we are going to double crochet in front in the next double crochet, which is really easy because then we don't have to try to work through the row 1A that we already created. Chain 1, double crochet in front. Chain 1, double crochet in front, and you're going to just repeat that all the way across until you get to the end of this row. The chain 4s in this pattern do count as a double crochet and chain 1, so you're going to skip that last chain of your chain 4 and come into that third chain, and that is the one that you are going to pick up in to create your last double crochet. So in the pattern it says to double crochet in last double crochet, and then it's noted in parentheses that it is the turning chain. So that completes row 1B. So as you can see, that is a really easy one. Row 1A is kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to get used to your double crochets in front and double crochet in back. Again, make sure to take your stitch marker from the beginning of row 1B and bring it over to the end so you don't drop any of these stitches. So we turn the entire piece and we are going to bring the working yarn of color B to the front again, okay? So just fold that forward. I like to kind of hold it down while I begin my A color so that this way it doesn't get in the way. This yarn is not pulling well from this center. I think it's such a mess, that's why. The Pound of Love skeins are just so big that once you get through a big portion of them, they kind of cave in on themselves a little bit. That's the issue that I'm having. Okay, so here we go. So bring color B to the front, hold it down, okay? And I'm gonna just turn this back because it's more comfortable for me to make my starting chain. Row 2A starts with a chain 4, okay? Make sure you're holding this to the front, and then we are going to double crochet in front. So this stays at the front, yarn over, double crochet in the front of the first double crochet, chain 1, and then we have to double crochet in back. So yarn over, and this is the next double crochet right here, okay? And what we're going to have to do is we're going to need to work through color B. We're going to get our yarn on our hook like this, and we're going to pull it to the back and flip color B to the front so that we can work that stitch here on the back. Create your double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet in front of the next double crochet. Now we're going to keep repeating that, alternating our front back, chain 1, yarn over, come to pick up from the back so we could pull this to the back. Oops. Create our double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in front, and just keep repeating that the whole way down until you reach the end where we need to end with a double crochet in front. So your last stitch is a double crochet in front. Okay, so here I come to the end. I'm making my double crochet in front, and now I'm getting to this last stitch, which is the turning chain, and we need to double crochet in front in here. Again, pick up the third chain of the chain 4 from the previous row. And what that's doing is it is giving you a full square on the outside here. So see, you have your squares. this is making sure that it stays to the front. Do you see that? Otherwise it would be pulled into the back and it would just look weird. It would kind of wrap around itself. So that's how we get that square on the front. Move our stitch marker to our last, oops, I picked up the wrong one. Take your stitch marker from the beginning of this row, move it to the end of the row that we just completed so we don't lose any stitches. And then we're going to place our hook into the first row of our next color. So now we're working row 2B. I'm going to chain my 4. Okay. And then row 2B again is another really easy one. These are all double crochet in front. So I've made my chain 4 and I am going to double crochet in front in each double crochet of the previous row. You make sure that you place your chain 1s in between your double crochets. We never work in the chain 1 stitches. So I might, somebody is having fun with his cars. So I might not always, I'm sorry if when I'm doing this, if I just tell you double crochet, there's a chain 1 between each of them. You're just never working in them. So they just kind of become unnecessary to even say it. Okay, so here I am at the end, right? So I chained 1 and I've put a double crochet in front in each of the double crochets in the previous row. And what we need to do here is I need to come between these last 2 double crochet and I need to pick up the 3rd chain of our turning chain, which acts as our last double crochet. Bring this to the front. Oh, I dropped my yarn over. Here we go. Let me get my yarn over. Bring this to the front and complete our last double crochet. Take our stitch marker, place it in our last loop over here, and then that creates that. And now see, by doing a front and a front here, it gives us these perfect squares on this side of our work. Isn't that great? Okay, let's move on to row 3A. So all of the rows start with a chain 4. So here's my chain 4. I'm going to turn all of my work and I am going to be starting row 3A. Now 3A, we have to keep our color B to the back, which makes things a little bit easier because we don't have to worry about forgetting that. And then it's a whole big pain in the butt to try to bring it back to the front. If that does happen, you're probably going to want to cut the yarn and then pull it through to the front, because if it's a really long piece, yeah, you're gonna have to cut it. If you don't have this on the right side, you're gonna have to cut it to get it to the right side, which is kind of a pain in the butt. So just be aware of that. So for row 3, color B stays to the back. 3A, we chain 4, double crochet in front of the next double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in front of the next double crochet. And we are going to be repeating that all the way across. So again, 3A is a super simple row because all these double crochets are in front, so there's no having to worry about placement and pulling it through another color and making sure that you don't pick up stitches you shouldn't or that you skip something by accident. Super, super easy on row 3A. Again, make sure that you pick up the 3rd chain in the turning chain that's acting as our last double crochet. Oh, I skipped a chain 1. Oh goodness. I did that a lot on the blanket. I forgot chain 1s. But it's not that big of a deal because you just work through them and then it creates the space. Grab your stitch marker, place it at the end of your row, and let's come back here to row 3B. Start with our chain 4. Make sure you turn your entire work. And now we are going to be double crocheting in back of all of these double crochets. Now it's double crochet in back because we are working on the back of the blanket, but there's no crossing happening even though it's called out as a double crochet in back. So again, super easy on row 3B, all double crochets in back. Make sure you don't skip your chain ones in between your double crochets. And again, when you reach the end, you are picking up the chain 3 of the turning chain that is acting as the double crochet for the final stitch. Grab your stitch marker. Put it in this last stitch. Let's turn our work, and we are going to be moving on to row 4A. So row 4A wants you to start by bringing color B to the back. So we are going to bring color B to the back for the beginning of our row 4, and we are starting with row 4A. Again, we always start with a chain 4. Okay, color B is to the back, and we start here by placing a double crochet in front of the next double crochet. So yarn over, we're going to come between the 2 double crochet of color B, pick up the next double crochet back here, get our hook in there, pull it to the front, and then complete our double crochet stitch. Chain 1, and now we have to double crochet in back. So that's easy because color B is on the front, so it's easy for us to pick up this one on the back and create our next stitch. Chain 1 and double crochet in front. So make sure you're skipping the space on the front because we worked this one on the back. Come into the next space of between color B's stitches, grab the next stitch in color A, pull it to the front, and then complete your stitch. And now you're going to repeat that to the end, alternating double crochets in backs with double crochets in fronts, making sure that you're working through the right windows. You can see the pattern starting to start until we get to the end. Where we are going to again make sure we pick up that chain 3 of the turning chain to double crochet in back. Okay, so you could see the pattern is forming really nicely here on this side of the blanket, right? These like double squares, and then you could see we have our front squares. So pick up your stitch marker again, make sure you move it to your last stitch. We're going to come here. See, we had to make sure we had that to the back so that now we can pick it up on the right side of the work. Chain 4. And now for row 4B, what we need to do is, again, really simple. We are doing all double crochet in back for row 4B. So we have our chain 4, yarn over, come into the next double crochet, create a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the next. Now, this is easy, but also a little bit difficult at the same time. So these stitches are kind of pulled onto the front, but we have to work them all to the back. So you need to pick them up and kind of wrap them through. Once you've done this row 4B a few times, it gets really easy where you don't need to be flipping it. Like the first few times that I did this row, I kind of had to flip my work all the way over so I could see that I was pulling it to the front properly. But once you get really good at it, you can kind of hook it and pull it without having to really turn it to look. It just takes a little bit of time, but you'll get used to pulling those stitches to the back on some of these rows where they're kind of pulled a bit to the front. So all double crochet in back on this row, and then when we get to the end, again, chain 1, find that third chain in the chain 4 of the turning chain and place your last double crochet. Take your stitch marker, whoops, and place it in your last stitch. Moving on to row 5A, start with your chain 4, turn your entire piece. So moving on to row 5, excuse me, make sure you start with your chain 4. Your color B has to go to the back. Okay, so let's grab this, bring it to the back. Okay, pull this back here. And then row 5 starts with a double crochet in back. Okay, so be very careful about placement here, right? What we're doing is we're forming this next set of squares. See these here? So our double crochet in back for 5A is going to be behind this square, but we need to make sure that color B is in between those 2 stitches, the chain 4 and the double crochet that we're about to create. So yarn over and come here in back in this first double crochet. Make sure that this stays to the back and in between the stitches that we're creating. So yarn over and complete the double crochet. So, oh, my stitch marker popped to the front, but my yarn is actually to the back. So let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna pull this a bit so you could see, right? This is coming through here for that corner of that square so that it comes through here on the back. So make sure, be really careful of that on row 5A, because otherwise your right here won't look correct. Chain 1, and then we have to double crochet in front. So we are double crocheting in front between these 2 squares that we're creating. See, now watch, this is where the magic happens. Double crochet in front. Look at that, bam, a square. How cool. Okay, so chain 1, double crochet in back. So we're working behind the squares that we're creating using color B. Chain 1, double crochet in the front so that we're hiding that color B to the back. And this is all creating these squares on the front of the work. I mean, look at how cool that is. So once you really get into this pattern and you could see the repeat, you're barely going to need the written pattern to look at, because it just becomes very intuitive where you have to place your yarn so that you could form all of these stitches. Gosh, I've got such a knot in my pound of love. What is going on? Okay, sorry. All right, so here we come to the end, right? And now we've got this last square here. So it's going to look a little floppy because we're not going to be working through this. We're working behind it. So chain 1, and then we have to create our double crochet in the third chain of the turning chain 4. Again, that acts as our last double crochet. Grab our stitch marker, put it in our loop. Okay, so that's the double crochet in back. Okay, so now this last square looks a little bit floppy. When we work our next row, we're going to pick that corner up so that this way it'll pull our square into proper placement like we did down here. Okay, so moving on to row 5B, insert your hook, create your chain 4 for the beginning of your row. And row 5B is a really easy one. It is all double crochet in back. So yarn over, come here, we're picking up from our squares, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the next double crochet, again, double crochet in back, right? So, because we're working all these stitches to the back of our work. It sounds so much more complicated than it is, like when you're reading through the pattern, or the blog post where I have a lot more tips in the blog post. It's really not that complicated. It's such a simple concept once you get it going. Oh boy, it's getting intense with the cars. Okay, you might not notice that I skipped a stitch. There was supposed to be a double crochet in back. I skipped it. I fixed it, but I skipped it. So just watch. I noticed it when I came to the end of this row that square wasn't going to form right. It's written properly in the pattern, and I'm pretty sure I said it out loud right. So finishing up these last couple of stitches for the double crochet in back, here we come to the end of this row, and this is now where you're going to see how it pulls this corner into proper placement. So we have to come in between these last 2 double crochet, grab that third chain. Here, here's a little tip. I'm just gonna grab the whole chain and I'm gonna pull it through to the back, okay? So that this way then I can pinch it and keep it where I want it. And now I'm gonna pick up that third chain and create my double crochet. Because sometimes it's a pain to find it on the front and then pull it to the back. And so now there, look, see that perfect little square? Oh, I love it. Move your stitch marker over. And now we are going to move on to, oh goodness. And now we're going to move on to our row 6 instructions, which is the final row of this repeat. Okay, so again, row 6, going into color A, 6A, start with your chain 4. Okay, your color B needs to be to the front, so super, super easy. And we are going to double crochet in back, chain 1, and double crochet in back all the way across. Super, super easy. Okay, coming to the end again, chain 1, and pick up the third chain of the turning chain 4 that acts as your double crochet. Move your stitch marker to the end. And now we are going to come back to row 6B, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are going to double crochet in front the whole way across. So again, super, super easy. Making sure that you have a chain 1 between all of your double crochets, all the way to the end. Get to the end, chain 1, and then create our last double crochet by picking up the third chain of our turning chain 4. Get our stitch marker, move it to our last stitch, and that is the whole repeat. So now as you can see here, this kind of flops. So as you can see, this ends with these open. We actually end this pattern on a row 3 repeat, which does the same thing. And so see here how it's kind of open, and here it's open. What you're going to do is you're going to single crochet these ends together. You can use either color A or color B to create a nice finished edge. So this is our perfect, cute little swatch. I love it. So the swatch, if you follow your rows 1 through 6 for this repeat, it should be just about a perfect square. So if you wanted to use this stitch tutorial to create something else, all you need to do is choose the yarns that you're going to use, choose the hook that you want to use. If you're not using the Pound of Love Mandala combo or a 5mm hook, whatever yarn and hook combo you want to use, make this nice little swatch. It should be about 4x4 for these yarns. If you're using a bigger yarn or a thinner yarn, it'll be bigger or smaller, but you will then be able to measure that to get your gauge and then extrapolate that out to figure out how big of a blanket or whatever it is that you are going to be making would be. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. This is my first tutorial for interlocking crochet. I hope I didn't mix up any of my terms, but hopefully just seeing me do it was enough of a help, even if I may or may not have fumbled through some of it a little bit. But great, great, great special crochet technique. Expect to see Life in Yarn using more of this in the future. I am absolutely in love with this technique. There's so many crazy, really cool, beautiful, absolutely stunning and gorgeous patterns that you can make. Be sure to like and subscribe for more of my video tutorials and free crochet patterns that are coming in the near future. And thank you guys very much for being here.